My own Ouija board experience, May 2012. In December 2011, my stepmom died. She basically went to sleep and never woke up. Doctors later confirmed it was a brain aneurysm, and no one could have done anything to save her. She was the third family member of mine to die in 1 year. It was particularly hard on my dad, who was out of town on business when it happened. He said it was the worst phone call he'd ever gotten. My brother and I went to the funeral, which was held in West Virginia, although they lived in North Carolina, and tried our best to be there for our dad and our step-siblings. Fast forward to May 2012. I had just gotten out of school and finished dealing with the happenings of my dorm room. One night, we were having a few people over at my boyfriend's mom's house. We were all sitting around a campfire when Zach, who was sitting next to me, types out on his phone a text to his mom that said, "Shelby has never played with a Ouija board. We should get ours out." And before he sent it, he had me read it, right before he hit the send button. His mom called him over to her chair. She whispers something to him that I couldn't hear, and I'm pretty sure no one else did either. He looks up from their conversation, looking a little scared. Cheryl, his mother, had asked if he wanted to get out the Ouija board when she called him over, and he had never sent the text message. We all kind of brushed it off and laughed about it, and decided to get the board out anyway. Now, the house my boyfriend and his family live in is haunted. However, I believe none of the spirits that were present at the board that night. Zach, his mom Cheryl, her boyfriend, Mike, and Zach's two sisters, Kayla and Elizabeth, all lived there. I'm pretty sure that all of them have had experiences. Zach says that he thinks 2 adult ghosts live there and that they like to play pranks, usually really harmless things, like moving game console controllers in place of where Zach's boot usually goes, flipping the fan around, or unplugging the TV. There's a weird handprint type smudge that Cheryl can't paint over. It always returns. So we get the board out and left the lights on because I was a little nervous. Kayla, Zach, Cheryl, and I were gonna play. Trent, Zach's buddy, and Mike were gonna watch. Elizabeth was elsewhere that night. A few months back, Zach told me a story that his mom had been followed by a demon since she was 18 because of a Ouija board accident. She didn't know that I knew, and Kayla had never heard the story either. So the planchette started in circles, and Cheryl took the reins and asked questions. She first asked who was there. Immediately, it spelled D-E-M-O-N. My heart was literally in my throat, but I refused to show fear. Cheryl made it clear she had dealt with it before, took a very stern tone, and asked what it wanted. It spelled her name. She told it that it can never have her again, and that she had gotten rid of it once for her family. It then spelled Zach. She told it no again. Then it spelled Kayla. Again, she said no. She told it couldn't have anyone in her family. Finally, it spelled out my name. Not Mike, the love of her life, but me. Cheryl started to get mad, I think. She said, "No, Shelby is mine too. You cannot have her." It spelled out Zach's. She told it that it knew I was Zach's, but explained to it that I was her family too. It left us alone for a bit, but whatever else we talked to, it made no sense. Just random nonsense, not really spelling out anything. Then the demon came back. We literally had the same conversation, but only got about halfway through it because Mike heard and took the cross off the wall and put it next to the board. The planchette pulled hard to goodbye. Cheryl then told Kayla and me about her experience when she was 18. The basics were that she and her friends were playing with the board and the demon came through and it said it wanted her. So she said, "Well, I'm right here. Take me." That was bad news bears, as it has stuck with her ever since then. She told us one night she thought it possessed her or something, and it took 4 grown men to hold her back from beating someone senseless. She's a very small lady. It also comes out when she drinks Jack and Coke. So she stays away. So we played again, keeping the cross next to us. The board told us it wouldn't talk to us because Zach was in the room and it didn't like him, and it didn't like boys. I thought that was odd. Then we finally asked if anyone had a message for us. It went to yes. Then Cheryl asked who. It spelled out my name. We asked who it was from, and it spelled out my stepmom's name. I broke down and cried. No one knew about Deb other than Zach, and he wasn't even touching the board at the time. It told me she was safe and happy. That's all I could ask for. I found out I was pregnant about August 11th, 2012. I'm around 14 weeks pregnant right now, and I've had some creepy, unnatural things happening to me, and I don't believe that I'm imagining them. I've had a few encounters with spirits or ghosts before, and so has my boyfriend, who's the father of the baby. I feel that since the baby has both sides of the family vulnerable to ghosts, I am more susceptible to it now that I'm pregnant. I have been hearing voices and seeing faces of dead children, and I've had the dream, or rather nightmares, of someone wanting to try to kill my child. My boyfriend then told me that he had a dream of the same woman, and she was doing a ritual in the basement, and she was pregnant, and going on about how it will work this time, but never explaining what it was. I'm scared because I wake up with cuts on my body sometimes after these dreams, as well as my lamp that was 5 feet from my bed fell on top of my head when I wasn't even close to it. I just feel that something evil is going after my child. Either that or I'm going crazy. I really need help. An opinion or something on what I should do to help prevent this. I'm scared for my life and my child's life. I have some theories that the woman is trying to steal my child to use it for her evil purposes or reincarnate herself or her child. Yet, I honestly don't know. That's why I've come here. Maybe someone has been in the same situation. I'm very scared, and I need help. I was a third-generation miner, and proud to be. But in the summer of 2010, the 135-year-old company closed its doors and locked its gate. I was crushed. Having grown up as a miner, I felt as if I had little to offer to the workforce. Besides this, I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and there's very little work outside of fast food. On top of all of that, I was selling my possessions to make a house payment for a home I was going to lose anyway. My sister in Indianapolis, Indiana called me. She said that there would be work for me in the growing city. Since I have no wife or children, this was perfect for me. I had received a warm reception. I had a family that cared. It was great. Within a week, I landed a job in Greenfield just outside of Indy. Then it started. I was skeptical about ghosts and goblins. I had no religion to speak of. All of this would soon change drastically. I worked the night shift. My sister had her own business and was gone a lot, and her husband was a top manager at a coal store, so he was always gone as well. For my sake, they put the dog in his cage during the day so I could sleep. I was asleep in the early morning, and Foxy, the dog, jumped up on my bed and woke me up. She gave me a strange stare like she'd never seen me before. Then the dog ran out of sight. Foxy had a habit of knocking the trash over, so I figured I would put her away and clean up the mess later. I went downstairs and yelled for the hound. Then I saw her sitting in the cage with the door latched. I figured I was dreaming and wrote the incident off. That was the end of sleep for me. Most stories have a gradual build-up. Not mine. It was full force from the beginning. Every 15 minutes, the entity would wake me up. The TV would turn on with the volume on full blast, or the bed would jerk violently. Always making noise, it made sure it woke me, never let me rest. I remember one time while laying in bed, the people on the TV started talking backwards. Then the dark manifestation attempted to have conversations with me through the vent in the floor. This was disturbing. I had no idea what language it was speaking. I just asked it to leave me alone. It would reply with laughter. It soon spoke English in broken dialect, part Latin, part English. It was understandable for me. Then it began showing itself physically. Its gray color and extremely long arms and legs made it very uncomfortable. The worst was its face. Its eyes. There weren't any. It had 2 big empty sockets and constantly swayed its head side to side. It always talked about my private life and made perverted remarks about my girlfriend. I once saw my brother-in-law in the living room, and he turned to face me and he had no eyes. Just empty sockets. And then he walked through a wall. I called him, and he assured me that he had been at work all morning. The demon apparently could take any shape, man or animal. I was lost and turned to alcohol to cope. I didn't tell anyone looking back at this whole mistake. I made a deal with the entity. I told it to leave me and my family alone, and I would talk with it. It loved the attention. The entity was very conceited and loved to show how powerful it was. It also was a master manipulator. The lack of sleep and alcohol was affecting my job performance, and as you can imagine, my nerves were frayed. I was fired for falling asleep in my car at lunch. I had never failed at any job before. This devastated me. Already in a weakened state, I took the entity's advice and ate a whole bottle of Synthroid, a prescribed medication. My sister figured out what happened. They were her pills. She forced a mixture of peroxide and water down my throat and I threw up. She probably saved my life. They were scared and I was drunk. By this time, it was all routine for me. I was afraid to live and I wasn't afraid to die. I was admitted to a psych ward in Carmel. In there, the torment stopped, and I got much needed rest. There, I studied the work of Jesus and acquired faith. I figured if pure evil can manifest, then pure love could too. I know that I sound out of my mind, but no sleep makes you wonder. It also makes you irrational. To this day, I'm not sure what that entity was. Much more happened to me than I have included in my story, but I know that it was part of its plan. I know the entity was smarter than me. I was a pawn in a game. I don't know what the dark entity was. I think it was the devil himself. Since I left Indy, my sister's marriage has come to an end and my nephew became a drug addict. Their lives have fallen apart. I didn't hold my end of the deal. I know it's the dark entity at work. Since then, I have gotten sober, and when I think of Indiana, I often cry. I have gotten another house, and I'm waiting on my sister's arrival. I must get them away from that horrible monster. Not long ago, I moved into a trailer on the north side of Lafayette, Indiana. My first night here was met with a feeling of foreboding, like something was watching me. It was enough to keep me up all night and send chills down my spine. For days afterward, I repeatedly experienced strange things. I remember sitting at my computer in broad daylight and seeing a black shadow move throughout the room. I had no shades open and the sky was overcast. At the same time, I was on a video call with my girlfriend. She claimed to see a black figure moving throughout the room behind me, but when I turned, there was nothing there. I could feel its presence, kind of like a window being left open in the wintertime. From time to time, I would hear footsteps on the closed porch, as could friends that happened to be over, and hear whispering coming from somewhere in the room. I would also see shadows move across my feet in pitch blackness. In the dead of night, I feel ice-cold chills running down my body. Now, 6 months later, I'm still experiencing strange things. I often feel uncomfortable in this room, and can feel the presence, whatever it is, watching me at night, leading me to the possibility that something is here. I can hear breathing in my headset, kind of like uneven breathing. And I know it's not me breathing into the headset because it doesn't match my breathing, which I can hear. It makes the hairs on my back stand straight up. Whatever this thing is, it frightens me, and I would like to know what it is, if that's even possible. My name is Nate, and I'm living in Las Vegas, Nevada. The story I'm about to tell is based on my childhood home I grew up in, and the encounters I had in Elkhart, Indiana. I have never posted on the internet before, and have discussed writing a book on the incidents due to how unreal it seems to most people when I tell them about it. Well, it's true. I'll start off saying that I was born in Elkhart, Indiana. The house I will be speaking of is located on Southdale Drive near what used to be the old Pierre Morgan Mall, and is now a Kroger. I moved into the house with my father when I was around the age of 10. The house at the time seemed to be a nice place to live. I made a friend, Alex, in the house behind us, and the neighbors were friendly and often stopped by to talk to us and just shoot the breeze, if you will. The only neighbors that never talked to us were the ones to the right of us, if facing the street. Anyways, it was a cozy little home with a downstairs and 3 bedrooms upstairs. I had one in the middle hallway, while my dad had the one on the right of me. It didn't take long for me to live there when I started to notice weird things going on. At first, it was noises, of course. I'd wake up to the sound of footsteps in the kitchen or blinds being swept from side to side as if someone rushed by them really quick. I wouldn't say anything due to the fact that my father would never believe me, and it wasn't so bad at first. Then the noises grew louder and more sinister as if they were trying to put fear into me. There would be sounds of chains dragging along the kitchen floor. And mind you, we had no dog or pet at the time. There would be laughter when I was watching TV, behind me, coming from the other room, that obviously I knew was not my dad's. I told my dad, and like the usual skeptic, he said that it was nonsense and I needed to stop. He often grew a little agitated with me from how often I came to him with it. I kind of dealt with it by hiding my head underneath my covers and trying to fall asleep quickly. By this point, I would sleep with my door open, so that if scared, I could run into my dad's room. And this time, I also dreaded going to bed. One night, I laid awake in my bed, scared as usual, because of hearing those noises in the hallway. I pushed myself up in the bed to see someone peering into my room, as if they had most of their body to the outside, unseen. But as if they were creeping on me and watching me. I then saw 2 other faces doing the exact same thing, all to the same right side of the hallway looking into my room. At this point, I knew I couldn't go through my doorway, and I was too scared to yell, so I hid under my blankets and prayed that they'd leave me alone. I was under the covers until I fell asleep. Later that week, I had a dream that still no one would ever believe when I tell them. I had a nightmare that I was laying in bed and all of a sudden my closet door flew open. There, my toy chest lid blew off the top and all the toys scattered on the floor. All while this was happening, my bed and I were being moved and rotated to the right side of my room. The toys then proceeded to start moving towards me as if they were going to attack me. I then woke up breathing heavily and noticed that my bed had actually moved to the right corner of my room, and that my toys had actually been scattered all over my floor face down. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. I thought I was losing my mind already at such a young age. I didn't say anything because I knew it wasn't going to do myself any good. A few days later, I was taking a shower, and it was getting near bedtime. Now, the shower was all the way on the left of my room, and right next to the last bedroom on the left. There was this curtain outside of the bathroom that was opened. I had the towels and wash rags inside. Also, inside the shower, there's a small window to look into the garage, which I thought was a little unusual. I was watching up, and all of a sudden the garage door opened and the lights and radio came on. The radio was on loud, and I could hear my dad jump up in the living room and run towards the garage. While running, I heard him say, "Nate, what are you doing in the garage?" I was scared at this point and told him that I was in the shower. I saw him run into the garage and look around to see if anyone was in there. He then closed the garage and turned off the lights and radio. He proceeded to head back up when it happened again, and this time the garage was slamming up and down and the radio was going nuts, changing stations while the lights were flickering on and off. My dad didn't know what to do, and maybe was startled a bit seeing how he had just went out there to fix the problem. A little while later, my mother and 2 brothers moved in with us. My dad had agreed to help her and the boys out and welcome them in, and I was also thankful that I finally had family that I could play with and also keep me company. By then, I had my bed downstairs along with my dad's, and the boys and my mother had the rooms upstairs to themselves. It didn't take long for these guys moving in to piss off whatever was in my house. One day, my brother Kyle and I were playing video games downstairs, and we were sitting on my bed. They both had noticed that my bed was shaking, and that the blinds dividing the exercise room, me and my father's part of the basement, was moving as if someone passed through them into my room. We both sat there still for a second when the drawers in the bottom of my bed shot open. We both ran upstairs and told my mom what had happened. We came back down to find that all was calm and my drawers were closed and the blinds still. Now, my mom is a very spiritual person, and in no way did she ever not believe in any of us. We had told her of times when going upstairs that our feet would be grabbed by some unseen force and that we would sometimes be stripped of our shoes and chased upstairs. She had the same done to her, but told us not to be afraid and show no fear. She even believed when I told her what happened next. I was sleeping downstairs when I awoke to the blind swaying back and forth and the light flickering on and off in the exercise room. Something told me in my head to go through and see what was happening. I looked over and saw that my dad was asleep, and I didn't want to wake him, so I proceeded quietly. As I walked through the blinds, the punching bag in the room was moving about like someone had just gotten done laying a few heavy punches into it, and the lights continued to flicker. All of a sudden, I hear a loud gunshot and then blood splatter against the wall in front of me. I felt as if I were going to have a heart attack and ran and jumped to get to my father's bed. He awoke and asked what was wrong and told me to calm down and go back to sleep. He didn't hear the gunshot? I woke up to find nothing on the wall, not a speck of blood, nothing was different. I told my mom, and she was terrified and also agreed that she felt something evil in the house. I had later been sleeping upstairs in my mom's room with the boys, and I was asleep on the floor. Later on, I had woken yet again to something disturbing. I was laying down facing the door when I heard an extremely loud bang on the door as if someone was trying to kick it in. I looked back to see my mother and brothers wide awake staring at the door, and then myself. We heard multiple running footsteps in the hallway, and when I smoothly opened the door to see who was there, the curtains were waving back and forth like people were actually running up and down the hallway at the fast pace. I began to talk to everyone in the room when my brother Kyle told me he had been up for a few hours before because of what he saw. It looked like a man in our backyard pushing a lawnmower and mowing the grass, yet he stated he could see through this man. My mother had enough and started to look into the house's history and asked the neighbors if they knew anything. The neighbors to our right, the only ones who wouldn't talk to us, had been hiding something all along. She had told them what was going on, and it seemed not to be surprised. They had told the woman was shot to death in the basement over a drug situation. This had explained maybe why they didn't want us to talk to them or come over due to the fact that they maybe didn't want to bring anything over from the house. We didn't stay much longer after hearing that, but hearing that was not the reason we had to leave. My mother had reportedly been in somewhat of a trance or possessed at a point in time, not long after we heard the news of the murder. She had told me she didn't want to tell us because we were too young to understand. She had told me that when in the house, she felt as if she was not in control of who she was and what she could and couldn't do. She said she was made to walk and sit in the middle of the stairs leading to the downstairs. If she sat there, she said the basement filled with flames and figures she said had to be demons that were clawing at her feet, telling her to come to hell. As this was happening, the upstairs was filled with an immense light, and a voice telling her to decide whether to join heaven or hell. She said she could never lift her head, and that she could not move, but rather sit with her head down. Then all at once it lifted, and she ran upstairs, panicking and threatened of her life. My mother had soon moved out with the boys, and I went with her. I don't know if the neighbors told us the truth about what happened in that house, and I find it hard to believe that it's all that had happened due to the fact that it was so evil and wretched there. My father soon followed out of the house, and I'd never asked what made him bring himself to leave. But I have a clue. Whether you believe the story or not, it's up to you. But this is no joke. And I have family that can support these sayings. Maybe one day I will go back there and visit to see if anything is still around, but not alone. I hope you enjoyed this story, but please believe when I say it. I have been utmost sincere and honest with you on this story. It's the truth and full truth. There are such things as demons and ghosts out there, and I'm living proof. I hope you ghouls enjoyed this one. It was really long. I'm glad I made a really long video. I miss making long videos. It's just time restrictions. I'm sorry. But Indiana got some creepy stuff. A lot of demonic things are apparently happening in Indiana. So if you live there, be careful when you play with Ouija boards and ghost boxes and stuff. But yeah, we're getting close. I'm getting some subscriber stories in, but I would like to get more. So please send them in so I have a nice big subscriber special for when this channel hits 3,000 subscribers. So send them in, ghouls, please. But as always, my last video will be on the top left. My next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. The secret word for today is Slim Jim because my husband brought some home and I keep eating them. But remember, there's always someone or something watching you.